The steering wheel was already underwater when Logan realized the river had taken the car. Headlights glowed sickly through the brown, churning flood pinned against the twisted guardrail like a trapped animal. Somewhere inside, a child was screaming. Wind howled down the broken overpass, carrying bits of hail and the sharp metallic stink of gasoline. Logan's dress shirt, his only good one, was plastered to his skin, soaked by rain and river spray. His phone buzzed in his pocket for the third time, the screen flashing the same name, City Transit Exams Final Call. If he didn't show up in the next 11 minutes, the promotion he'd studied 6 months for was gone. No second chance, no better paycheck, no way out of the overdue notices taped to his fridge. But 20 feet below the car shifted in the current front end, dipping back end, slowly lifting. A tiny fist pounded against the glass. "Somebody help!" A woman's voice shrieked from the bank, her shoes half swallowed by mud. Logan's heart slammed against his ribs as hard as that little fist against the window. He could walk away and make it to his exam. Or he could jump and hope the river didn't take all of them. Before I go any further, tell me where you're listening from tonight and hit that like and subscribe button if you believe courage still matters in this world. Logan Price was 37, and most days he felt closer to 60. By 5 every morning, the old duplex on Maple Street in Dayton, Ohio, hummed with the same rituals coffee that tasted like burnt rubber, the whine of the ancient radiator, and the soft thump of his son's sneakers as Caleb shuffled into the kitchen, half asleep. Logan worked second shift, operating a forklift at a distribution warehouse on the edge of town, the kind of job that paid just enough to keep the lights on, but never enough to get ahead. He'd once worn a different uniform, paramedic blues ambulance siren, wailing through city streets at 3 a.m. But that life ended the night a drunk driver ran a red light and never stopped. His wife Jenna didn't make it. The medical bills did. 3 years later, the debt still sat in a crooked stack on the counter, a silent third roommate in their 2-bedroom place. Logan's back ached. His hands were permanently stained with grease and cardboard dust, and every time a past due envelope showed up, he heard Jenna's voice in his head, "Promise me Caleb won't grow up scared of bills." So he pushed, picked up overtime, sold his old fishing gear, and when the city announced a chance for warehouse staff to test into a transit supervisor position with benefits real pay and a schedule that meant he could actually tuck Caleb in more than 3 nights a week, Logan grabbed on like it was the last rung of the ladder. At the worn kitchen table, he spread out route maps and safety manuals after Caleb fell asleep. He traced bus lines with a calloused finger, memorized intersections, highlighted emergency protocols. Caleb would wander out some nights, rubbing his eyes. "You gonna be the boss of all the buses?" Dad Logan would smile, even when his brain felt like mush. "Something like that, buddy. If I pass this test, we can stop pretending ramen noodles are our favorite food." He wasn't just chasing a promotion, he was chasing breathing room. A chance to fix the front step that sagged to replace Caleb's 2 small sneakers before his toes punched through to pay off even one of those hospital envelopes and finally throw it away. He didn't talk about Jenna much. Not because he'd forgotten her, but because remembering hurt, and he was always so tired. What he did talk about over bowls of cereal and the hum of the TV was doing the right thing. Helping people. Being someone his son could be proud of, not just someone who showed up exhausted and angry at the end of a shift. On the morning that would split his life in 2 before and after the sky over, Dayton started out perfectly ordinary. Gray, low clouds, a little drizzle. Logan put on his best shirt, pressed so hard the iron left a faint shine on the cuffs, and tied the same navy tie he'd worn to Jenna's funeral. He dropped Caleb at school with an extra long hug, promised they'd celebrate that night with real pizza if things went well, and pointed his old pickup toward the downtown testing center. Halfway there, The radio cut from rock music to a shrill emergency alert about sudden severe storms and flash flooding. Traffic slowed. Rain turned from a drizzle to a curtain. And as he eased onto the old river overpass, wipers beating furiously against a wall of water, a pickup. 2 cars ahead hit a sheet of standing water, spun sideways and smashed through the rusted guardrail, vanishing nose first into the swollen, raging river below. Rain hammered the roof of Logan's pickup as he braked hard at the end of the overpass, heart still pounding from what he'd just witnessed. Traffic had come to a stunned halt. By the time firefighters arrived and sealed off the bridge, the sinking truck below was nothing but a smear of red tail light under the frothing brown water. Logan leaned against the railing, drenched and shaken, replaying the child's scream he'd heard. It clung to him the rest of the day like cold mud he couldn't wash off. He still made it to the testing center. Barely. Soaking wet, 15 minutes late, and looking like he'd crawled through the river himself. The proctor at the front desk gave him the kind of tight smile people reserve for men who already look like failures. "Sir, the exam started at 8:30, she said, voice clipped. "It's 8:45. "I know. There was an accident on the bridge. A truck went over. I stopped to..." She held up a hand before he could finish. "These are standardized exams. No late admissions. You'll have to sign up for the next cycle." The next cycle. It slipped out, raw and disbelieving. "Ma'am, that's 6 months from now." She offered the same smile, only colder. "That's correct." Behind him, 2 other applicants in crisp shirts traded glances. One whispered something that made the other smirk. Logan didn't turn around. He didn't trust himself to. He just nodded once, thanked the woman because that's what his parents had drilled into him, and walked back out into the rain. The storm had passed, but the wind still carried the scent of wet asphalt and river silt. Logan climbed into his truck and sat there for a long time, forehead on the steering wheel. No outburst, no anger, just a tired ache behind his ribs, spreading slow and heavy, until breathing felt like lifting weights. That night when he picked up Caleb from school, the boy bounded toward him with muddy sneakers and a grin that could have powered the whole city. "Did you pass, Dad? Did you get the job?" Logan forced a smile that hurt worse than any bruise. "Didn't get to take the test today, buddy. They're gonna reschedule." Caleb's smile dimmed, but didn't disappear. "That's okay. You'll pass next time. You're good at everything." The words were simple, but they swallowed Logan whole. He ruffled his son's hair and held on to that tiny, fierce faith like a lifeline. The next morning, the consequences arrived fast. At the warehouse, his supervisor, Rick Daly, a man who treated break rooms like his personal kingdom, cornered him near the time clock. "Heard you ditched the exam," Rick said, sipping burnt coffee like it was fine whiskey. "You really gonna throw away a career shot because of some traffic jam?" "It wasn't a jam. A truck went over the bridge." "Whatever story you need to sleep at night." Rick snorted. "Some guys aren't built for responsibility, Price. Nothing to be ashamed of, just the way it is." Logan's jaw tightened. "I'm here, aren't I? On time." "Yeah," Rick said, tapping a finger against the rip in Logan's shirt sleeve. "But maybe clean up before strolling in. Or is that part of the folklore now? Hero of Maple Street saves imaginary children misses exam." A couple of coworkers heard and laughed. Not cruelly, just casually. The kind of laugh people toss out when someone else is the punchline they don't care enough to defend. Logan didn't rise to it. He walked to his forklift, checked the fuel gauge, and started his shift. But the words dug in deeper than he let show. Responsibility. Not built for it. He spent the day lifting crates and avoiding the thought that maybe Rick wasn't entirely wrong. Maybe this was as good as it got. By the 6th hour of his shift, his back was a live wire of pain. He didn't say a word, didn't complain, didn't slow down, because overtime meant $20 extra, and $20 extra meant milk and cereal, and maybe a pizza night for Caleb. But by the next week, the bridge story had spread. Someone had exaggerated it into Logan jumping into the river like some Navy SEAL. Someone else twisted it into Logan panicking and abandoning his truck on the bridge. He tried correcting the rumors, then stopped. People heard what they wanted to, and what they wanted was a story that made them feel better than the quiet guy who never took smoke breaks and always picked up extra shifts. At lunch one day, he sat alone at the corner table as usual. But this time, 2 janitorial workers, a teenage boy and his uncle, approached cautiously. "You were on the bridge," the uncle said. Not accusing, curious. Logan nodded. The man clapped him on the shoulder. "Heard what you did? Takes guts to stop when nobody else does." The praise hit harder than the mockery. It cracked something open in him. He swallowed and said, "I just did what anyone should do." "Most people don't," the man replied, and walked off. Logan watched him go, unsure what to do with the warmth that bloomed in his chest. That warmth didn't last. 2 days later, a letter arrived in the mail stamped with the city seal. He tore it open, hands trembling with hope. It wasn't a reschedule notice. It was a form letter informing him he was disqualified from the promotion cycle due to failure to meet exam attendance requirements. If he wanted to try again, he'd have to restart the application process. From scratch. The envelope fluttered from his fingers onto the kitchen table, landing beside a stack of medical debt reminders and a school fundraising flyer Caleb had been too shy to hand to him directly. Restart. Begin again. Another 6 months. Maybe more. Caleb came around the corner holding a robot made from soda cans, eager, expectant. "Dad, look," I added, "wheels." Logan forced a smile, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's great, kiddo." "You okay?" Caleb asked, voice suddenly small. He wasn't a child who missed much. Logan crouched to eye level. "Just thinking about work stuff. Nothing you need to worry about." But Caleb's face tightened the way it did when he sensed adult problems creeping into the room. "Are we gonna be okay? Like, money?" "Okay." Logan hugged him hard. Always. But that promise felt thinner each day. Over the next several weeks, the storm never truly passed. The river incident became a footnote, but the consequences clung to him in ways no one else could see. Rick assigned him the worst shifts, late nights, split weekends, holiday hours, claiming senior staff needed flexibility. Logan didn't argue. He needed the extra hours. But it meant missing Caleb's school assembly, where his son stood on stage gripping a certificate with empty eyes, searching for the one face that wasn't there. "Did you see the video, Mrs. Stevenson?" a kind neighbor asked later, showing the shaky phone recording. Caleb kept looking toward the doors. Poor thing. Logan watched the video that night after Caleb fell asleep. The boy's hands fidgeting with the edge of his shirt on stage, glancing to the side again and again. Logan felt something inside him twist painfully. He'd saved a child on a bridge, maybe, but he hadn't been there for his own kid. And the world didn't care. The following week, Logan was called into Rick's office. The air in the room was stale, recycled, tinged with old coffee. "You've been unfocused lately," Rick said, tapping a pen against a clipboard. "Your numbers are slipping. Slower load times, fewer pallets per hour. I've been covering 3 shifts a week," Logan said, keeping his voice level. "It's a lot. Plenty of guys handle it. Plenty of guys don't have kids." Rick leaned back. "Look, Price, I'm trying to help you. If you want to keep your job, tighten it up. Warehouse can't carry dead weight. The words landed like a slap. Not shouted, not cruel, just casually dismissive the way people talk about objects, not humans. Dead weight. Logan walked out without arguing. He'd learned long ago that fighting only gave men like Rick more to use against you. But that night, as he watched Caleb sleep under blankets decorated with space rockets, a new fear seeped into him. If he slipped even a little more, if Rick found enough excuses, he could lose everything. Bills piled higher. Rent crept up. The fridge made a new ominous sound every time it kicked on. And despite all that, Logan kept working, kept pushing, kept trying to stay steady for Caleb's sake. Yet the pressure didn't stop. One Friday afternoon, the warehouse held a mandatory staff meeting. Logan stood at the back, arms crossed, trying to stay awake after an 8-hour shift, followed by a parent-teacher conference. He barely registered the agenda until he heard Rick say, "And for those who applied to the Transit Advancement Program, the city has released a list of finalists for next quarter's mentorship track. Only 3 names from our facility made it." Low murmurs spread through the room. Logan Price Rick, read aloud, was not selected. A few guys glanced his way. One smirked. One looked sympathetic. Most didn't bother reacting at all. But then Rick added, voice carrying just enough edge. "This is why you don't skip exams, gentlemen. Opportunities don't wait for people who can't show up." A couple of quiet laughs rippled through the room. Logan felt heat crawl into his collar, but he kept his face straight, his posture calm. He didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing a crack. When the meeting ended, he slipped out the side door before anyone could stop him. He walked to his truck, sat behind the wheel and let the silence close in. His hands trembled. Not from anger, he didn't have room left for that. From exhaustion. From the weight of feeling like he was sliding backward no matter how hard he clawed forward. Then his phone buzzed. A message from Caleb's school. Urgent. Caleb had an anxiety episode during science lab. Please call. Logan's vision blurred. He blinked hard, started the engine, and drove. At the school office, he found Caleb sitting in a chair with his knees pulled to his chest, eyes red-rimmed. "Hey, buddy," Logan said softly, kneeling beside him. "What happened?" Caleb's voice wobbled. "I thought, what if you got fired today or hurt you didn't text back at lunch?" Logan swallowed hard. "I'm okay. I promise." But the boy shook his head, gripping his dad's sleeve. "You're always tired. And people at my school, they say grown-ups get fired when they mess up." Logan felt something deep and sharp twist inside him. His son shouldn't carry fears like that. He deserved to be a kid, not a worrier. He wrapped his arms around Caleb and whispered, "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." But as he carried his son out to the truck, rain beginning to fall again, Logan felt the truth pressing against his ribs. Something had to give. He couldn't keep being the man everyone dismissed at work, the man who missed the moments that mattered, the man whose son worried about eviction more than book reports. The pressure had been building for months. Now it was tightening fast, unforgiving like the moment before a storm breaks. And that storm was coming. He could feel it in his bones. The storm rolled in without warning. Not the kind that rattled windows or flooded gutters. Logan had weathered plenty of those. This one came as a siren, distant at first, then swelling until it shook the air around the warehouse like a living thing. He had just finished strapping down a pallet when the intercom crackled overhead. "Attention, all personnel, hazardous material spill in Bay 4. Evacuate immediately unless trained for containment." Logan froze. Bay 4 was on the opposite side of the building near the loading docks. near the employee parking lot, near the break room, near the spot where Caleb sometimes waited when Mrs. Stevenson dropped him off early on Fridays. His heart slammed into his ribs. Today was Friday, and Mrs. Stevenson had texted an hour earlier that she'd drop Caleb off right after school because she had a dentist appointment. Logan had been so buried in overtime paperwork, he hadn't answered. He sprinted toward the hallway, chest tightening as shouts echoed through the building. Workers rushed past him, some calm, some panicked, everyone funneling toward the exit doors at the front of the warehouse. No one seemed to notice Logan going the opposite direction. Bay 4 was on lockdown only during chemical leaks involving the drum storage area. He'd seen the safety sheets. He knew what was in there. And if even one drum had ruptured, the fumes could overwhelm someone in minutes. He rounded the corner and nearly collided with Rick Daly, who was ushering a cluster of employees toward the exit. "What the hell are you doing?" "Price, go out the front." "My kid's here," Logan gasped. "He might be back by Bay 4. Rick cut him off with a hard shove toward the crowd. "You go back there. You'll choke before you make it 10 feet. Don't be stupid." Logan barely stumbled. "He's 8 years old, Rick." "That's not my problem," Rick snapped. "Move." Something cold and sharp slid into Logan. Then anger, yes, but deeper than that. A line he didn't cross often. But when he did, nothing pulled him back. He straightened, stepped around Rick, and said nothing more. Price Rick barked. "You walk into that hallway and whatever happens is on you, you hear me?" Logan didn't break stride. He pushed through the metal doors leading toward the back half of the warehouse. The air changed immediately. Thick, metallic, a sting at the back of his throat. His eyes watered. He pulled his shirt up over his nose, breathing shallowly, as alarms pulsed overhead. Bay 4 was still 100 feet away. The hallway lights flickered. Somewhere a ventilation fan whirred with a sickening grind that meant it wasn't working properly. He moved faster. A figure appeared ahead, small, scared, clutching something silver against their chest. Dad Caleb's voice cracked as he ran toward him, a soda can robot clattering in his arms. His face was pale, eyes watering from the fumes. Logan scooped him up immediately, pressing the boy's face into his shoulder to shield him from the worst of the air. Caleb's fingers twisted into the fabric of his shirt. "Dad, I tried to go to the front, but the door was locked." "It's okay," Logan said, voice steady, even as fear crawled up his spine. "I've got you. Just hold on." He turned toward the nearest exit, but a spill of thick, iridescent liquid seeped under the doorframe of Bay 4, ahead proof the rupture was real. The fumes burned like acid in his nostrils. The back exit was closer than the front, but the back corridor was also narrower with poorer ventilation. He had seconds to decide. Caleb trembled in his arms. "Dad, are we in trouble?" "No," Logan whispered. "Not as long as I'm here." He chose the narrow corridor. He ducked low, cradling Caleb tight, breathing through his teeth as the air grew heavier. The corridor bent left, then right. He moved as quickly as he dared, careful not to slip on the slick concrete floor. His vision blurred at the edges. His lungs screamed. Halfway down the hall, the overhead fixtures popped one by one, casting the corridor into a flickering strobe of cold blue emergency lights. The floor trembled as something heavy collapsed in Bay 4. Caleb whimpered. "Dad, it hurts to breathe." "I know, buddy. Almost there." Logan forced the words out gently, though each breath felt like breathing fire. Another 20 feet. He could see daylight slanting under the emergency door at the end of the corridor like a thin blade of hope. He picked up speed. Then he heard the sound metal ripping, followed by a sharp hiss of pressure releasing. A second rupture. The fumes thickened instantly, doubling in potency, hitting Logan like a fist. His steps faltered. His vision swam. His knees buckled for half a second before he forced himself upright again. Not now. Not when Caleb was still in his arms. Not when giving up meant leaving his boy alone in a nightmare he could never escape. Logan tightened his grip on Caleb and pushed through the pain. He stumbled into the final stretch of hallway, feet slipping slightly on the newly slick floor. He reached the door, shoved his shoulder against the bar, and burst into the back lot, gasping as clean, cold air rushed around them. He staggered away from the building, collapsing onto the pavement beside a loading ramp. Caleb clung to him, coughing, trembling. A group of firefighters rushed through the gate from the street helmets, shining equipment rattling. 2 victims, one shouted, "Get masks on them now!" Strong hands guided Logan onto his back, fitting an oxygen mask over his face. Another firefighter gently pulled Caleb from his arms and set a smaller mask on him. "Sir, stay with me," a medic said, tapping Logan's cheek when his eyelids drooped. "You're in respiratory distress. You inhaled a lot of fumes, but you got him out. You hear me? You brought him out." Logan blinked hard, forcing his eyes open. Caleb reached for him, tiny fingers brushing his hand. "You okay, buddy?" Logan rasped. Caleb nodded weakly. "You saved me." The words cut straight through the haze. Sirens wailed closer as more rescue units arrived. Workers streamed out the front of the building, pointing, shouting. Some stood frozen, staring as firefighters flooded toward the back lot. One of them was Rick. He stopped dead when he saw Logan lying on the pavement with oxygen and monitors taped to his chest, and Caleb sitting beside him with a medic's coat draped over his shoulders. Rick's face drained of color. A firefighter strode up to him. "Were you aware a miner was still in the building during evacuation?" Rick stammered something, but the firefighter cut him off sharply. "The man you dismissed earlier just carried a child through toxic fumes. If he'd listened to you, that boy might be unconscious right now." Rick swallowed hard and looked at Logan, a look that held something like disbelief, or maybe shame. The medic helping Logan shook his head. "Sir, you're lucky. Another 60 seconds in there, and you'd have collapsed." Logan closed his eyes briefly, not from exhaustion, but from relief so powerful it made him lightheaded. Caleb was safe. That was all that mattered. The ambulance doors swung open. As medics lifted Logan onto the stretcher, a cluster of workers gathered near the back gate. Some of them, the ones who had smirked at him, whispered about him, ignored him, now stood silent, wide-eyed. Someone murmured, "Holy hell." He went back in, another voice. "He carried that kid through that mess. He saved him. No question." Logan didn't look at them. His gaze stayed on Caleb, who climbed into the ambulance and squeezed his hand. "You're my hero, Dad," the boy whispered through his oxygen mask. And for the first time in a long time, through the pain, the fear, the exhaustion, Logan felt something break open in him. Not the usual ache of loss. Something steadier, stronger. A reminder of the man he used to be. The man he still was. The man his son believed in. The ambulance doors closed, drowning out the noise of the world outside. Inside, the medic adjusted Logan's mask and said quietly, almost reverently, "Sir, whatever people think of you at that warehouse, whatever they say, you just proved who you really are." Logan didn't answer. He didn't need to, because he knew what mattered now. He knew what he'd almost lost. And he knew this moment, this choice would ripple far beyond the walls of any warehouse. As the ambulance pulled away, sirens echoing into the gray Ohio sky, Logan held his son's small hand and felt the unmistakable shift of a story turning. Everything after this moment would be different. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and warm linen and something else, something quieter, almost reverent. Logan lay propped against a stack of pillows, the oxygen mask finally removed, though a faint burn lingered in his throat every time he breathed too deeply. Caleb sat curled at his side, One small hand wrapped around his father's thumb, like a lifeline he had no intention of letting go. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting monitors, murmuring about exposure levels. Each one of them paused longer than necessary when they read his chart, then glanced at him with a mix of respect and soft disbelief. Word had traveled fast. Faster than he expected. Faster than he wanted. Outside his room, footsteps gathered multiple sets, hesitant whispering. A nurse closed the door gently, but not before Logan caught a glimpse of bright yellow jackets, warehouse uniforms, and even a few faces he recognized from shift rotations. People who barely knew his name, but suddenly waited in the hallway like he was someone important, someone they needed to see. Caleb leaned closer. "Are they mad at you?" "No," Logan said, brushing his son's hair back. "I think they're just trying to understand something." A moment later, the door creaked open, and Mrs. Stevenson stepped inside. She carried a bag of fruit, and the kind of relieved expression only someone who had spent hours terrified can wear. "Oh, thank God," she whispered, pressing a hand over her heart. "When the school called me and said there was a spill, and then the radio said they'd pulled a man and a child out, I nearly lost it." Her eyes grew glossy. "You scared me half to death, Logan." He smiled softly. "Didn't mean to." "You saved that boy," she said, voice trembling. "Saved yourself too, but the way they said you carried him out like you knew exactly what you were doing." He didn't respond. Not yet. Because he knew if he started explaining he might unravel things he'd sealed tight years ago. After she left, another figure stepped inside. Rick Daly. Not swaggering, not smirking. Just standing there, quiet, awkward hands twisting the brim of his ball cap like he'd never held one before. Logan kept his expression neutral. Caleb sat up straighter, his jaw tightening. Even an 8-year-old could sense this was a man who'd made things harder than they needed to be. Rick cleared his throat. "Kid, your grandma in the lobby, or someone who can take you for a minute?" Caleb glanced at Logan, who nodded gently. "Go with Mrs. Stevenson for a bit, okay? I'll be right here." Caleb hugged him, cast a stern look at Rick with all the authority an 8-year-old could muster, then walked out. When the door shut, silence wrapped the room. Rick exhaled. "Look, Price, I owe you an apology." Logan raised an eyebrow. "For what?" "You were pretty clear about your feelings." Rick winced, not from the sarcasm, but because of the truth in it. "I underestimated you. Hell, I dismissed you." He swallowed hard. "And I would have kept doing it if today hadn't happened." "You mean if I hadn't walked into a hazmat spill and dragged my own kid out?" Logan asked quietly. Rick nodded. "I thought you were average. Quiet. Slow to pull the trigger. The kind of guy who tries but never steps up." His voice cracked just slightly. "But I was wrong. Real wrong." Logan let the words hang. He didn't offer relief. He didn't rescue Rick from the discomfort. He simply waited. Rick shifted his weight. There was something about the firefighters today. The things they said. Like they knew you somehow. Or like they saw something in you the rest of us didn't. Logan's gaze drifted to the blank spot on the wall opposite his bed. The part of his life he'd closed off for years. The part nobody at the warehouse knew. Rick finally asked, voice low, "Who were you before all this? Because that wasn't the first time you walked into danger like you belonged there." Logan inhaled slowly. He'd hoped he'd never have to explain it. Not because he was ashamed, but because the story carried landmines. "I used to be a paramedic," he said softly. Rick blinked. "What, 8 years?" Logan continued. "First in Cincinnati, then here in Dayton. I was the guy who went into burning homes, overturned semis, chemical leaks, anything that required getting someone out before the rest of the team arrived. Something shifted in Rick's face, honor mixed with guilt. But then Logan said, voice thickening one night, I took an overtime shift. And Jenna, my wife, was driving home from work. He swallowed. A drunk driver blew through a red light. She didn't make it. Rick lowered his head. I wasn't there, Logan whispered. All those years saving strangers, and I wasn't there for the person who needed me the most. After that, I couldn't stay in the job. I tried, but every call, every siren, I felt like I was failing all over again. Silence. Heavy, honest. Rick ran a hand through his hair. Logan. Jesus, why didn't you tell anyone? Because you don't talk about grief with guys who ridicule you for taking too long on a pallet run, Logan replied. And because some things hurt less when they're quiet. Rick nodded, shame darkening his expression. Price. I'm sorry. For everything. The apology wasn't dramatic, it wasn't flowery, but it was real. Logan nodded once, an acknowledgement, not forgiveness. Before either man could say another word, a nurse stepped in. Mr. Price. There's someone who'd like to speak with you. She says it's important. The nurse stepped aside. A woman entered mid-30s, composed, wearing a navy blazer and a silver badge clipped to her lapel. Her dark hair fell neatly to her shoulders, and her eyes scanned the room with the calm precision of someone trained to take in everything at once. Mr. Logan Price, she asked gently. That's me. She extended her hand. I'm Karen Harlow, Senior Safety Director for the Midvale Logistics Network. We oversee compliance and risk operations for distribution sites across the region. Rick turned pale. Very pale. Karen continued, I was on a call with City Response when the spill happened today. Your name came up. Not surprised, Logan muttered. Probably on a list of people who made poor decisions. Karen smiled faintly. Actually, the opposite. She pulled a tablet from her bag and tapped the screen. We received preliminary reports from the hazmat team. They described the scene, the leak intensity, the exposure levels. She looked at him meaningfully. Based on the data, the fumes in that corridor would have incapacitated most adults within 30 to 40 seconds. You made it nearly 2 minutes while carrying a child. Logan shifted uncomfortably. There wasn't really a choice. That's exactly why I'm here, she said quietly. Rick straightened, sensing something massive approaching. Karen took a step closer. We've had an open position for nearly a year. A field safety investigator, someone who knows emergency response, who can train crews, evaluate risks, and step up when it counts. Her eyes softened. Someone calm under pressure. Someone like you. Logan blinked. Ma'am, I work a forklift. I haven't held a medical license in years. Karen shook her head. The medical certification is secondary. What matters is instinct, courage, experience, and the ability to do the right thing when no one's watching. Rick made a strangled sound behind her. Karen didn't acknowledge him. Logan hesitated. Why me? Because I've reviewed first-hand accounts from 4 responders who were there today, Karen said. Because I listened to the audio from the firefighter who reached you. He said he saw something rare in your eyes. He used the word unshakable. She opened her tablet again. And because I pulled your personnel file as soon as your name came across the radio. The only thing your warehouse sees is a quiet worker who keeps his head down. But that's not who you are. Logan's chest tightened. Not painfully. More like something inside him bracing for a truth he wasn't sure he deserved. She continued, Mr. Price. I want you on my team. Not 6 months from now. Not next year. Now. Rick's jaw dropped so low it could have hit the tile. Karen glanced at him briefly. Your manager will receive the transfer paperwork and a note regarding evacuation protocol failures. She looked back at Logan. You won't be returning to that warehouse. For a second, the room felt too small for the moment. Logan sat there stunned. He'd wanted a promotion, wanted breathing room stability, dignity, but he'd never imagined anything like this. A role built around the very skills he'd buried. A path that didn't shame his past, but honored it. A path that might even let him forgive himself. But, he began, voice soft. What about training tests certification? Karen smiled. You'll get everything you need. Paid. Supported. Structured. Her tone warmed. But none of that can teach what you already showed today. Caleb slipped quietly back into the room, saw the adults talking, and climbed onto Logan's lap as naturally as breathing. The sight softened Karen's expression even further. Mr. Price, she said gently. I know today was traumatic. I know you'll need time to think this over. But I wanted to make sure you heard this before anyone else told you who you are. She paused. You're a hero. A real one. And we could use men like you. She handed him her card, nodded respectfully, and stepped out. Rick lingered, hat twisting in his hands. Price, if you take that job, I won't blame you for never looking back. Logan looked at him with quiet certainty. I wasn't planning to. For once, Rick didn't have a comeback. He simply nodded and left the room. The door clicked closed. Silence filled the space, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was expectant, alive. Caleb looked up at him, eyes bright with something more than admiration. Hope. Are you gonna take it? Dad? Logan stared at the business card. Its clean print, its promise, its doorway to a life he thought he'd forfeited. I don't know, he murmured, though a tide was already rising in him. But I think everything might be about to change. And for the first time in years, the future didn't feel like a wait. It felt like a choice. The morning after the spill, the hospital felt different. Nurses stopped by not just to check Logan's vitals, but to thank him. A security guard paused in the doorway and said he'd told his own kids about the man who walked into toxic fumes because his child needed him. Even the doctor, a woman with a brisk, no-nonsense air, softened when she said, Mr. Price, you did something extraordinary yesterday. I hope you understand that. Logan didn't know how to respond. Praise never sat comfortably with him. But when he saw Caleb holding a juice cup like a trophy, bragging to anyone who passed that my dad saved us both, something warm settled inside him. Something steady. Later that afternoon, a representative from the warehouse's corporate office arrived. Not Rick. Not anyone Logan recognized. A suit with tired eyes and a clipboard stepped inside and introduced himself as Mr. Hendley. He asked a few procedural questions, but by the time he reached the end of his packet, he looked genuinely embarrassed. Mr. Price, he said, clearing his throat, I reviewed the evacuation reports. I want to apologize. Your manager failed to follow multiple safety protocols. That will be handled. Logan didn't flinch at the news. Rick wasn't a villain, just a man trapped in his own smallness. But accountability mattered, and hearing someone finally say as much loosened a knot deep in Logan's chest. And for what it's worth, Hendley added, your actions saved lives yesterday. We're grateful. After he left, Caleb crawled onto the bed again, resting his head on Logan's shoulder. Are you gonna take that job the lady talked about? He asked quietly. Logan looked down at him. The boy who had watched him struggle, worry bend under weight he never should have had to see. What do you think I should do? Caleb didn't hesitate. I think you should do the thing that makes you smile again. That night, while Caleb slept curled up in the recliner, Logan stared at the ceiling and let the memories come. Sirens slicing through the night, Jenna's laugh drifting through an apartment doorway, the hollow ache after she was gone. The years of lifting crates while pretending the world inside him hadn't collapsed. He'd believed that part of him, the part that ran toward danger instead of away, had died with her. But yesterday proved he'd only buried it. 2 weeks later, he walked into Midvale Logistics Network headquarters wearing a new shirt and the only tie he owned. Karen Harlow met him in the lobby herself, smiling as though she'd been waiting for this moment. "Ready?" she asked. He nodded. "Yeah, I think I am." The training was intense. Safety protocols, emergency simulations, field assessments across dozens of facilities. Logan found himself drawing on muscles he'd forgotten: quick judgment, calm under pressure, the ability to communicate clearly when everyone else panicked. He didn't feel rusty for long. In fact, he felt alive. And every evening he drove home to a boy waiting by the window with a stack of homework and a new robot invention to show him. They cooked dinner together, laughed, more often slept with fewer shadows in the corners of their minds. Months passed. A year, almost. One crisp October afternoon, Midvale held its annual operations summit, a massive gathering of supervisors, managers, and field investigators. Logan wasn't the kind of man who liked stages or microphones, but Karen insisted he attend. "You're part of this team now," she said. "People need to see what that means." When she introduced him, the applause caught him off guard, not loud or theatrical, but warm, genuine. Dozens of men and women nodding in recognition of someone who had stepped into danger without waiting to be asked. Afterward, as he mingled awkwardly with other attendees, he spotted a familiar figure near the refreshment table. Rick. He hadn't seen him since the hospital. The man's posture lacked its old sharpness. His eyes flicked up, unsure, before he approached. "I heard you're training folks statewide now," Rick said quietly. "Heard you saved another new hire from messing with a busted valve last month." Logan shrugged humbly. "Just doing the job." Rick exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Logan, I want you to know I learned from what happened. I treated you like you were less than me, but you weren't. You never were." He paused. "I'm trying to be better than that now." It wasn't forgiveness he sought, it was understanding. And Logan, older in ways beyond his years, simply nodded. "I'm glad to hear it, Rick." That was enough. The summit ended. Logan drove home through the fading sunset. The sky streaked with orange and violet. When he opened the apartment door, Caleb raced to him with a grin that swallowed half his face. "Dad." "Look, I built a crane arm like the ones you use at work," he said, demonstrating proudly. "It can pick up stuff without breaking it." Logan knelt, watching the tiny gears move. "Looks like you've got a future in engineering, kid." Caleb shrugged. "I just want to help people. Like you do." The words landed gently, like a blessing. Later that night, after Caleb fell asleep, Logan stepped out onto the small balcony overlooking their neighborhood. Porch lights glowed up and down the street. Somewhere a dog barked. A kid laughed. Ordinary life unfolding. He inhaled deeply, the cool air filling lungs that no longer burned from smoke or guilt. He wasn't the same man he'd been a year ago, the one who believed the best parts of himself were gone forever. He'd clawed through tragedy, through doubt, through the tired bones of grief, and found something worth carrying forward. Not heroism, purpose. A reason to stand up every morning and show his son what courage really looked like. Not the loud kind, not the flashy kind, but the quiet kind that kept going even when no one was watching. And as he leaned against the railing, feeling the steady pulse of a life rebuilt from ashes, one truth settled in his heart. Sometimes the world breaks you open, not to end you, but to reveal the strength you were never meant to bury. Because in the end, courage isn't the moment you run into the fire. It's every moment afterward when you choose to keep living with your heart unarmored.